The Ghost in Beige, the $70 million silent flight of vengeance, attention, destiny seekers. Imagine for a moment that life doesn't just slam a door on you, it delivers a punch to the face. Like and subscribe right now because this story is about more than just a plane. It's about the quiet strength, the hidden pain, and the incredible resurrection that blooms when no one is watching. What would you do if the person who swore to love you erased you from their existence, laughed at your dreams, and left you with the ashes of what was once yours? Would you surrender? Or would you light a flame so intense the whole world would have to look? Prepare for a takeoff that will leave you breathless. Hit the notification bell to witness the ultimate corporate karma. The Invisible Woman. She was invisible. To her ex-husband, Dr. Eleanor Vance was just a ghost in a practical cardigan, a relic of a life he'd upgraded from. He stood in the sterile luxury of the Boston Executive FBO VIP lounge, laughing at her. He mocked her failure, her discreet existence. He had the new wife, the new company, the new life. Eleanor had a complimentary cup of coffee, but in 10 minutes, the whine of a $70 million jet engine would change everything. The laughter would die in his throat, and he would finally learn who she really was. The VIP lounge of the Hanscom Field Executive FBO hummed with a quiet, expensive energy. It was a sound Eleanor had never quite gotten used to, the sound of lives lived at a different altitude. The scent of dark roast coffee and polished mahogany hung in the air, a stark contrast to the small one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge she had called home for the last 18 months. She sat on a plush leather armchair with her back stiff, tracing the rim of a porcelain mug with a nervous finger. Her oatmeal-colored cardigan felt like burlap in a room draped in cashmere and bespoke suits. Today was the day. The culmination of 6 more days of incessant, silent, heartbreaking work. The day her new life would either begin or completely crumble. She was waiting for a flight, not a commercial one, not even a first-class seat. She was waiting for a GDT-50ER, or so the email stated. The idea was so preposterous, she kept checking the printed confirmation in her plain cloth tote bag, half expecting a security guard to tap her on the shoulder and direct her to the main terminal where she belonged. Her divorce from Mr. Marcus Sterling had been a masterclass in public humiliation. He hadn't just left her, he had systematically erased her. They had been college sweethearts, the classic pair. He, the charismatic business major, and she, the brilliant introverted computer scientist. Together, they founded Helios AI, a company built entirely on her groundbreaking machine learning algorithm. Eleanor had been the architect, the engineer, the very soul of the company. Marcus had been the face. He charmed investors, gave TED Talks about their work, and graced the covers of business magazines. Then came Ms. Tiffany Bloom. Tiffany was a decade younger, a social media influencer, whose only contribution to society seemed to be posting pictures of expensive things. Marcus, in the throes of a spectacular midlife crisis, decided Tiffany was the upgrade he deserved. The divorce was brutal. Marcus's legal team, funded by the company she built, painted her as a bitter, unsupportive, and replaceable cog in the machine. They argued that her algorithm, while clever, was only one piece of the puzzle. The real value, they claimed, lay in Marcus's vision and brand building. In the end, he kept the company, the house in the Hamptons, the art collection, and the network. Eleanor was left with a modest cash settlement and a single, obscure patent she had registered under her maiden name, Vance, an experimental offshoot of her core algorithm that Marcus's lawyers had deemed academically interesting, but commercially useless. They had left it to her out of pity, a crumb from the table. She had spent the last of her savings just to survive, and invested the rest in a rented server and endless nights of coding. That useless patent, it turned out, was not useless at all. It was the key. While Marcus was busy running Helios AI into the ground with flashy, unfocused projects, Eleanor had been in her small apartment, cultivating that single patent into something revolutionary. She had built a new company from the ashes, Phoenix Systems, a name she chose one night fueled by desperation and black coffee. For 6 months, she had been in top-secret negotiations with Astrodynamics, a global tech conglomerate led by the elusive and legendary Mr. Julian Stone. They weren't just interested, they were stunned. Her new platform could solve a problem in global logistics that had baffled the industry for a decade. The deal was astounding, a life-changing acquisition that would make her one of the most influential figures in technology. Today, Astrodynamics was flying her to their headquarters in Geneva to sign the final papers. The nerves in her stomach were real. This was it. She checked her simple Timex watch, a practical gift from her late father, and took a small sip of lukewarm water. She just had to wait. She just had to get on that plane. The encounter. She closed her eyes for a brief second, trying to center herself, trying to silence the ghosts of Marcus's voice in her head, the voice that still whispered she was nothing without him. And that's when, naturally, she heard his. Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. Eleanor's eyes snapped open, her blood running cold. Standing less than 10 feet away, flanked by gleaming Rimowa luggage, was Marcus Sterling. He looked exactly the same, offensively handsome, wearing a bespoke Italian suit that probably cost more than her apartment's down payment, and radiating an aura of smug, undeserved superiority. His hair was perfectly slicked, his smile a bright, predatory flash, and clinging to his arm, looking like a high-fashion flamingo, was Tiffany. She was wrapped in a pink Balenciaga tracksuit, her lips plumped to comical proportions, and her large, empty eyes scanned the room with a look of profound boredom. Eleanor's first instinct was to shrink, to disappear into the beige upholstery of the chair. A flush of shame crept up her neck. Of all the places, of all the times, Marcus strolled over, Tiffany trailing behind him like an expensive accessory. He stopped directly in front of her chair, forcing her to look up at him. Eleanor, he said, drawing out the name, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. I have to say, I'm impressed. This is the invitation-only VIP lounge. Did you get lost on the way to the food court? Tiffany let out a sharp, high-pitched giggle. Ricky, don't be mean. Maybe she's cleaning here now. It's good, honest work. Eleanor's hands clenched in her lap. She refused to give them the satisfaction of a response. She just looked at him, her expression neutral, though inside, her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Always the quiet little mouse, aren't you? Look at you, Eleanor. The same bland clothes. Is life not treating you well after me? He leaned down, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, yet still loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. Still living in that sad little flat in Alston? I saw the pictures. Very cozy. He was baiting her. He had always been a bully, someone who could only feel large by making others feel small. And she had always been his favorite target. We, he said, gesturing dramatically between himself and Tiffany, are heading to Aspen. A little thank you from our investors. Helios is closing a massive new round of funding. We're about to go stratospheric. You probably read about it. Eleanor hadn't. The only news she followed was the quiet collapse of Helios's stock price. Public records showed the company was hemorrhaging money, burning through the goodwill she had built, and failing to innovate. Marcus was a salesman, not a builder, and he had sold a lemon. She knew from her contacts he was desperately searching for funding, not celebrating it. He was lying. as always. What about you? He pressed, enjoying his performance. What brings you to Hanscom? Meeting a new guy? Finally landed one? Let me guess. Is he a regional sales manager? A dentist? He laughed, a loud, grating sound that made a nearby woman in a Chanel suit look up in annoyance. Seriously, Eleanor, he said, the fake pity in his voice making her cringe. What are you doing here? You look completely out of place. Are you waiting for an Uber? This is not the building for that, darling. He and Tiffany laughed together. It was the sound that had haunted her nightmares, the sound of their shared betrayal. Eleanor looked at her hands, the chipped nail polish on her right index finger from an all-night coding session. She took a deep, steady breath. She had come too far to let him break her. Not here, not at a... She looked up, meeting his gaze evenly. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, but clear as a bell. I'm waiting for a flight, Marcus. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. A flight? On what? A Cessna to Provincetown? You can't even afford a first-class ticket on United anymore, let alone a seat out of Hanscom. Ricky? Tiffany whined, tugging on his arm. Stop talking to her. She's getting her little loser germs on your suit. Let's go get champagne. In a minute, darling, Marcus said, stroking her hand, his eyes still fixed on Eleanor. He couldn't stand that she wasn't crumbling. I'm fascinated. This is like watching a nature documentary. The discarded mate trying to come back to the watering hole. Eleanor stood up. She was 5'5", and Marcus towered over her. But by standing, she reclaimed a small piece of her dignity. She picked up her simple cloth tote bag, her knuckles white. You should go, Marcus. Your champagne is waiting. Oh, so brave now, he sneered. Where was this backbone when we were married? Oh, wait, I remember. You didn't have one. You were just the code monkey in the basement. I built that company, Eleanor. I built it. And you? You are just a footnote. A footnote, Eleanor repeated, the words tasting like ash. That's right. And now, if you'll excuse us, he said, taking Tiffany's arm again. We have to prepare for our flight. Our jet is a beauty. A Citation Latitude brand new. He started to lead Tiffany away, but paused, looking over his shoulder for a final blow. It's a shame, really. You had so much potential, but you needed me to make any of it matter. And now, look at you. He gestured back at the luxurious lounge. A mouse trying to play a lion. It's just sad. He turned and walked away, his laughter echoing back to her. Eleanor sank back into the chair, her legs trembling. The cruelty was so familiar, so precise. He knew exactly where to cut. For one terrifying second, she believed him. She felt small. She felt worthless. She felt like the footnote he had declared she was. 3. The quiet roar. The sting of Marcus's words sent her spiraling back. She recalled the cramped, fluorescent-lit computer lab at MIT where they first met. She had been a graduate student, immersed in a complex thesis on neural networks. He had been a business student, sweeping the campus with his charm and dazzling smile. He had approached her, not with the awkwardness of her engineering peers, but with a confident, polished interest. I heard you're the one who can actually make this stuff work, he had said, gesturing at her screen full of code. He hadn't been wrong. Eleanor lived in a world of logic, a world where code was poetry, and algorithms were a language she spoke more fluently than English. Marcus, she learned, lived in a world of presentations, contacts, and narratives. He didn't understand her work, not really, but he understood immediately its value. We're a team, he used to say, when his eyes were still genuine. You're the engine, I'm the steering wheel. We'll go far. And they did. She dropped her PhD to co-found Helios AI. They married in a simple courthouse ceremony. The first 2 years were a blur of sleepless nights, cheap pizza, and the thrill of creation. Eleanor coded, and Marcus presented her algorithm, which could predict consumer behavior with terrifying accuracy. It was their golden goose. They secured funding, and then more funding. The shift in Marcus was gradual, then sudden. The steering wheel began to believe he was the whole car. He began to refer to her work as our work, then my work. He was the one on stage, the one giving interviews. Eleanor, who hated the spotlight, was content to remain in the background, to build, to solve. She was the CTO, but in board meetings, Marcus would often cut her off. "Eleanor's getting into the weeds," he'd laugh. "Let me give you the big picture." He convinced her to put most of their joint assets into Helios AI stock, all under a complex holding partnership that he controlled. "It's smarter for tax purposes," he had assured her. She, who could model quantum data, found herself bewildered by the corporate legal jargon and trusted him. It was a devastating mistake. The patent she had retained was a fluke. It was for a side project, an idea she'd had about using her AI for predictive logistics instead of human behavior. She had filed it herself one weekend, paying the small fee with her personal credit card. She had told Marcus about it, and he had dismissed it. Logistics? Boring. Stick to what makes money, Elle. Stick to what we know. Then came the first signs of his infidelity. The late nights he couldn't explain. The scent of a perfume that wasn't hers. The sudden obsessive focus on his appearance. When she finally confronted him, finding a hotel receipt in his suit pocket, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "It just happened, Eleanor," he had said, speaking as if about the weather. "Tiffany, she understands the pressure I'm under. She supports my vision." "And I don't?" Eleanor had whispered, feeling the floor open beneath her feet. "I wrote the vision, Marcus." "You wrote the code," he had snapped back, the mask of the charming husband falling away to reveal the cold, ruthless man beneath. "The code is replaceable. I am not. You are holding me back, Eleanor. You are a drag." The divorce was his final, brutal masterpiece. His lawyers, the best money could buy, systematically dismantled her contributions. They produced emails where Marcus directed her research. He had only forwarded articles. They highlighted her lack of public appearances as proof of her minor role. She was portrayed as a disgruntled employee, not a co-founder. When it came to the useless patent, Marcus's lawyer had literally scoffed in the deposition. "Ms. Hayes is welcome to her little academic project. We, on the other hand, will keep the multi-million-dollar company." Heartbroken and financially depleted by her own legal fees, Eleanor had no more fight left. She signed the papers, left the courthouse, took a cab to a small sublet apartment. And for the first time in her life, she didn't just cry. She grieved. She screamed into a pillow until her throat was raw, mourning the loss of her husband, her company, and her life's work. A full week passed before she opened her laptop. When she did, she saw the file containing the patent. Boring, he had called it. She opened it, her eyes scanning the complex mathematical proofs she had written. A slow, cold anger began to burn away the hurt. He was wrong. It wasn't boring. It was brilliant. And Marcus, in his infinite arrogance, had left her with the one thing that could destroy him. He had taken the engine, yes, but she had kept the blueprint for a reactor. Viewer interaction, question. The moment Eleanor realized her useless patent was actually a blueprint for a reactor, what do you think was her first thought? Revenge? Just survival? Share your thoughts below. 4. The arrival. A new voice, sharp and professional, interrupted her memory. "Ma'am, Ms. Hayes." Eleanor blinked, the painful past receding. The lounge attendant, a young woman with a kind smile, stood by her. "Excuse me, Ms. Hayes, but I have an update on your flight." "Eleanor!" Her stomach clenched. A delay. A cancellation. They changed their minds. Marcus, who had been holding court by the espresso machine, turned to watch, a smirk already on his face. He was waiting for the final humiliation, the moment the mouse was told to leave the room. "Yes?" Eleanor said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your aircraft has just landed," the attendant said, checking her tablet. "It's taxiing to the ramp now. The crew will be ready to welcome you aboard in approximately 15 minutes. Would you like a fresh coffee while you wait?" Eleanor stared at her. It's here?" "Yes, ma'am. Right on schedule." The attendant smiled and walked away. Eleanor looked across the lounge. Marcus's smile had faltered. He looked confused. She could see the gears turning in his head. She's not being kicked out. Her flight is real. He exchanged a puzzled look with Tiffany, who merely shrugged and took a selfie. Eleanor turned to look out the massive, floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the tarmac. And her heart didn't just stop. It felt like it reset. Before the attendant's words had fully registered, Marcus was already moving. The idea that Eleanor could have anything he didn't, anything he hadn't approved of or was unaware of, was an offense to his entire sense of self. He left Tiffany by the coffee bar and returned to Eleanor's chair. His smile was gone, replaced by a tight, quizzical frown. "What is this, Eleanor? Did you cash in your pension for a one-way ticket on a charter, running away?" "I told you, Marcus, I'm waiting for a flight." "Yes, but what flight? You don't have this kind of money. I know what you have. I know what I left you. It wasn't enough for a Costco membership, let alone a private jet." "Marcus," Eleanor said, her voice low and steady. "This does not concern you." "Everything you do concerns me," he shot back, his voice rising. "You still used my last name. Oh, wait. You went back to Vance. Smart. Wouldn't want to tarnish the Sterling brand." "Ricky," Tiffany called, clip-clopping closer in her stiletto boots. "What's taking you so long? Our pilots are here. They're waiting." She held up her phone, showing a text message. "The citation is ready." Marcus glanced at his watch, then back at Eleanor. He couldn't leave, not without solving this enigma, not without re-establishing his dominance. "A citation latitude," he told Eleanor, as if she should be impressed. "Best in class. I'm sure your flight," he air-quoted, "will be very comfortable. Does it have propellers? Do they give you a bag of peanuts?" He laughed. It was the laugh she hated. The laugh he had used in the lawyer's office. The laugh he had used in their bedroom when he told her she was a drag. It was loud, designed to draw attention, to make her the center of a humiliating show. And it worked. The other occupants of the lounge, who had been politely ignoring them, were now watching. They saw a man in a Zegna suit and a younger woman in Balenciaga, laughing at a plain woman in a beige cardigan. The story wrote itself. She was the poor relation, the ex-wife, the charity case. "Look at her, Tiffany," Marcus said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "She's actually blushing. She's embarrassed." "It's okay, Eleanor. We've all been there." "Well, not here," he gestured at the lounge. "But you know, bad luck. Maybe I can help you out. I could offer you a job. Helios is expanding. We could probably use a junior coder, or someone to fetch coffee." "You were always good at that." The lounge fell silent, save for Marcus's mocking laughter. Eleanor felt the stares of the other passengers like physical blows. A man in a pinstripe suit shook his head, with a look of pity before returning to his spreadsheet. Eleanor's face was burning, but not with shame. It was with a rage so pure and cold that it sharpened her senses. She could hear the whir of the ventilation, the soft click of Tiffany's phone as she filmed this, and faintly, the distant thrum of a taxiing jet engine. She stood up again, her spine as straight as a steel rod. "You are right about one thing, Marcus," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. His smirk widened. "Oh yeah? What's that? I'm good at getting coffee?" She picked up her own untouched mug. But I'm better at math. And you were always terrible at it. Marcus's face tightened. What is that supposed to mean? It means you should have read the fine print. You should have paid attention in class. You took the house, right? The money and the company. You took the shell, Marcus. But you forgot the one thing that made it run. He stared at her, the laughter finally dying in his throat. He had no idea what she was talking about. His arrogance had blinded him. He truly believed he was the genius. You are pathetic, he finally spat out, resorting to his old insults. Delusional. You're sitting here, probably on a friends and family pass from some pilot you're dating, trying to lecture me about my business. You are a joke, Eleanor. You were a joke when we were married, and you're a bigger joke now. Ricky, let's go, Tiffany whined, tugging on his sleeve. You're making a scene, and not the fun kind. In a second, he hissed. He leaned in, his face inches from hers. You will always be nothing. You'll sit here and wait for your little prop plane, and I'll be in Aspen, closing a deal that will make me a billionaire. Remember that. Remember this moment, when you had a chance to be classy, and you chose to be this. He turned his back, a final, dismissive act. He and Tiffany started walking toward the glass doors leading to the tarmac, their luggage silently gliding behind them. Eleanor just stood there. She watched him go. She felt the eyes of the room on her. She was, in that moment, exactly what he had called her. The laughing stock. She closed her eyes and counted to 5, focusing on the sound of the approaching jet. It was closer now. Much closer. V. The $70 million verdict, the journey from her apartment floor to this FBO lounge, had been a brutal climb. After the divorce, Eleanor hadn't just lost her company. She had lost her identity. For weeks, all she had done was dissect her useless patent. Marcus's contempt for it had been his biggest blunder. He saw logistics, trucks, ships, warehouses. Eleanor saw a complex, dynamic system of predictive data, a problem far more challenging and valuable than predicting what brand of soft drink someone might buy. She had built Phoenix systems from scratch. Her office was a second-hand desk tucked into the corner of her studio apartment. Her boardroom was a local cafe with free Wi-Fi in Boston's North End. She lived on instant noodles and the small, shrinking divorce payout. Every line of code was written with a desperate, burning intensity. When the platform was stable, she didn't seek VC capital. She didn't pitch to cocky kids in hoodies. She used her last $1,000 to hire a patent lawyer and secure her new IP. Then, she drafted a single, perfect email. She didn't send it to a venture capitalist. She sent it to the personal, encrypted inbox of Julian Stone, the reclusive, visionary CEO of Astrodynamics. Stone was a legend, a man who had built a global empire on technology that actually worked, not just on hype. He was known as a ruthless but fair operator who loathed the visionary salesman type Marcus pretended to be. Eleanor didn't expect a reply. It was a shot in the dark, a final desperate flare. The response came 6 hours later. My office. Zurich. Tomorrow. Astrodynamics sent a car. They flew her, in Economy Plus, to Switzerland. She walked into a boardroom overlooking the Alps, hands trembling, clutching her laptop. Julian Stone was not a young man. He was in his 60s, with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through her. She simply opened her laptop and ran the demo. She showed him how her AI, Phoenix, could analyze global shipping routes, weather patterns, manufacturing chains, and political instability in real time, predicting and rerouting supply chains with 99.8% efficiency. It was a program that could save a company like Astrodynamics billions. Stone and his team of engineers watched silently for 2 hours. They asked her questions, not about profit margins or marketing, but about her architecture, her data modeling, her predictive decay algorithms. It was the most exciting conversation of her life. At the end, Stone closed her laptop. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice gravelly, "you haven't just built a better logistics program. You've solved global transport. What do you want?" "I want to build," she had said, her voice shaking but firm. "I want to see this work. And I want to make sure that Helios AI never profits from a single line of my code again." Stone nodded, a thin smile on his lips. "Helios AI, Delgado's company. Don't worry about them. They are a ghost ship. They have been trying to win our main logistics contract for a year, pitching us the same technology you invented. They just don't know how to make it work without you. They are irrelevant." The negotiations had been swift. Astrodynamics wouldn't just buy her program. They would acquire Phoenix Systems. They would make Eleanor the head of their new global logistics division. The offer was astounding. She wasn't just wealthy. This was generational wealth. This was the power to build, to create, to be secure for the rest of her life. And today was the signing. The flight to Geneva was the final step. Eleanor's thoughts snapped back to the present. Marcus and Tiffany were at the glass doors, chatting with their pilots. Their plane, the Citation Latitude, was parked on the ramp. It was a fine jet, no doubt. Functional. But it was parked right next to the aircraft that had just arrived for her. Eleanor's gaze drifted past the Citation to the machine that had just silenced the tarmac. It was magnificent. It wasn't just a plane, it was a statement. A Gulfstream G60, the world's largest, fastest, longest-range business jet. Its fuselage was sleek, pearlescent white. Its twin rear-mounted engines looked like a panther's shoulders. The Astrodynamics logo, a simple, stylized star, was painted elegantly on the tall T-tail. It made the Citation look like a child's toy. The Gulfstream's main door hissed open, and a set of polished aluminum stairs unfolded, touching the tarmac with a soft, expensive thud. Two pilots in crisp, dark uniforms emerged, followed by a flight attendant in a sleek gray suit. Marcus and Tiffany, standing by their own aircraft, had stopped talking. They were openly staring at the jet. "Oh my God!" Tiffany gasped, her voice ringing out on the quiet ramp. "Who is that for? That's bigger than the one the Beckhams use." Marcus was silent, his face a mask of confusion and envy. He knew planes. He knew exactly what that aircraft represented. It was $70 million worth of power to go anywhere, anytime. It was the preferred transport of billionaires and heads of state. Back in the lounge, the kind-faced attendant walked up to Eleanor again. "Ms. Hayes, your party is here to escort you." Eleanor turned, tracing the entrance from the reception area. There was a man she recognized. Julian Stone's chief of staff, a formidable German man named Mr. Richter. He was dressed in a dark, perfectly tailored suit, his expression polite but intense. "Ms. Hayes," he said, offering a small, correct bow. "A pleasure. Mr. Stone sends his apologies. He was delayed in Singapore. He will receive you directly in Geneva. We are ready for you, if you are." "Thank you, Mr. Richter. I am ready," Eleanor said. She picked up her plain cloth tote bag. Mr. Richter gestured toward the glass doors leading to the tarmac. "After you." Eleanor began to walk. The entire room watched her. The man with the spreadsheet had lowered his newspaper entirely. Her path took her directly past the espresso bar, where Marcus and Tiffany were now hurrying back inside, their faces pictures of utter disbelief. Marcus grabbed his pilot's arm. "Is there a mistake? Who is that plane for?" The pilot merely shrugged. "No mistake, Mr. Sterling. That is the N400 AD, the Astrodynamics flagship. It's here for a Ms. Eleanor Hayes." Marcus's head snapped toward Eleanor. His mouth opened. but no sound came out. The blood drained from his face, leaving him a sickly pale gray. Tiffany looked from Marcus to Eleanor and back again. Eleanor, Hayes, her? Ricky, what is going on? That is not possible. She is a nobody. Eleanor did not break stride. She walked past the espresso bar, past the staring receptionists, and toward the door. Mr. Richter held it open for her. As she passed through, she was now only feet from Marcus. He was trembling, his arrogant composure utterly shattered. Eleanor, he stammered, his voice a hoarse whisper. Eleanor, what is this? Is this a joke? Who are you with? What did you do? Eleanor paused, her hand on the door. She looked at him, not with anger, not with pity. She looked at him with the cold, distant gaze of a scientist observing a failed experiment. I told you, Marcus. You were always terrible at math. You thought you had the whole equation. You took Helios. You kept the brand. You kept the offices. But the algorithm that made it run, my algorithm, it had a fail-safe, Marcus. A back door I built just in case. The one you and your expensive lawyers never found. Marcus's eyes widened with dawning horror. What? What did you do? I did nothing, Eleanor said calmly. The code simply expired. The core logic was designed to decay and become obsolete after 2 years without my maintenance key. That was, let me see. She tapped her chin with a finger. About 6 months ago, right when your stock started to plummet, right when Astrodynamics pulled their contract bid from you. They don't like investing in ghost ships. She had just used Stone's own words. The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. It wasn't just that she had succeeded. It was that she was the reason he was failing. His company wasn't just struggling. It was an empty shell, and she held the key. He wasn't on his way to Aspen for a new round of funding. He was here, on a chartered citation, to beg a minor investor for a bridge loan just to make payroll. And he was about to be denied. He was ruined, and she had done it. You bitch! He gasped, his voice thick with pure, impotent hatred. Tiffany only stared, her mouth agape. But Eleanor did not dignify his insult with a reply. She simply stepped away from him, slinging her cloth tote bag over her shoulder. Mr. Richter, she said, I would like to leave now. I have a signing to attend. Of course, Ms. Hayes. This way. Mr. Richter ushered her toward the door. The cool November air hit her face. It smelled of kerosene and freedom. Eleanor stepped onto the tarmac. The ground under her feet felt solid. The whine of the GDKTER's auxiliary power unit was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. It was the sound of her future. She walked across the tarmac, Mr. Richter at her side. The flight attendant waited at the foot of the stairs, smiling. Welcome aboard, Ms. Hayes. We have your preferred tea, the Silver Needle, and the brief for your flight to Geneva. Thank you, Eleanor said, her voice firm. She placed her foot on the first step. Behind her, she heard a commotion. Eleanor, wait! You can't! Marcus had burst through the lounge doors, running onto the tarmac, his $1,500 shoes slipping on the painted lines. Tiffany was right behind him, shrieking his name. An FBO security guard was already moving to intercept him. Eleanor, please! He yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. We can fix this. We can be partners again. I'll get rid of her. We can have it back, like it was before. I need you. The last 3 words hung in the air. A pathetic, raw confession. He needed her. He always had. He just hadn't known it until this very second. Eleanor paused on the steps. She turned, looking at the man who had shattered her life. He was a mess. His perfect hair was mussed. His face was streaked and terrified. The security guard had him by the arm, but he was still straining to reach her. She looked at him. The man she had once loved. The man who had called her a footnote. And she felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. She felt a deep, profound, and final sense of release. The ghost that had haunted her was finally gone. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. It was a final judgment. She turned her back on him. For the very last time. She climbed the remaining steps and stepped into the cabin of the Gulf Stream. The interior was a cavern of cream leather, polished dark wood, and soft, indirect lighting. It was quiet, peaceful. The flight attendant closed the door, and the latch engaged with a solid, satisfying thud. The noise of the tarmac and Marcus's desperate screams were cut off completely. Eleanor sank into a seat that felt like a cloud. The flight attendant handed her a hot towel. "We are cleared for takeoff, Ms. Hayes. We should be airborne in 5 minutes." Eleanor nodded, fastening her seatbelt. She looked out the large oval window. She saw Marcus, a tiny, defeated figure, being escorted back into the lounge by security. She saw Tiffany, standing motionless by the citation, her hands over her mouth. Then, the massive Rolls-Royce engines of the G650ER roared to life. The jet began to move, gliding smoothly away from the FBO. It taxied to the runway, paused a moment, and then, with a powerful, breathtaking roar, it accelerated. Eleanor was pressed back into her seat as the plane lifted off the ground, climbing sharply into the bright, clear sky. She watched as Hanscom, then the city of Boston, and then the entire messy, painful chapter of her past shrank beneath her, dissolving into the clouds. She was flying to Geneva. She was flying to her future. And she was, finally, free. 6. Director Hayes. Meaningful ending. The Gulfstream G650ER ascended. It was a silent, relentless push against gravity, a smooth, vibration-free transition from Earth to the stratosphere. Eleanor was held, gently, by the luxurious cream leather, a sensation so different from the loud, rattling struggle of a commercial jet. Beneath her, the patchwork of Boston dissolved into a blur. Then, it was obscured by an impeccable white blanket of clouds. The sun, bright and unfiltered at 41,000 feet, filled the cabin with clean, antiseptic light. For the first 10 minutes, she didn't move. She just stared out the window, her heart rate slowly returning to normal. The image of Marcus's face, pale, terrified, and distorted by his own desperate cries, was etched in her memory. She had expected to feel a surge of triumphant joy, a dizzying, vengeful pleasure. Instead, she felt calm. It was the deep, resonant silence of a heavy vault door closing shut on a prison cell, a cell she hadn't even realized she was in. "Ms. Hayes?" Eleanor turned. The flight attendant, a graceful woman with a soft Nordic accent, was smiling at her. "May I get you a drink? We have a chilled Dom Perignon 2008, or I can prepare that silver needle tea you requested." Eleanor looked down at her practical, worn beige cardigan, the plain cloth tote bag at her feet. "The tea would be lovely. Thank you, Kirsten," she said, reading the name on the flight attendant's badge. A moment later, Mr. Richter emerged from the forward cabin, holding a sleek leather folder. He took the seat opposite her. He was not a man for small talk. "A good departure," he stated, placing the folder on the polished table between them. "Mr. Stone asked me to brief you en route. He felt it was best you arrive prepared." "Prepared for what, exactly?" Eleanor asked, accepting the delicate porcelain cup of tea from Kirsten. "For the magnitude of your new operation," Richter said. He tapped the folder. "This is not a simple acquisition, Ms. Hayes. This is a corporate restructuring. Astrodynamics is not just buying Phoenix Systems. We are building our entire global logistics division around it. And around you." He opened the folder. The first page was an organizational chart. At the very top, in a simple, bold box, was Julian Stone. Directly beneath him was a new corresponding box, Astra Global Dynamics, AGD, and within that box, one name, Eleanor Hayes, Director. Eleanor felt her breath catch. This was not a mid-management position. This was not a team lead role. The chart showed nearly 400 employees across 3 continents, in Hamburg, Singapore, and Los Angeles, who would, as of 9 a.m. tomorrow, report to her. She began, her mind racing. This is significantly larger than I anticipated. Mr. Stone does not do things small, Richter said, his face unreadable. He is not buying your past work. He is investing in your future potential. The financial package you agreed to is, of course, secure. But this is the work. He flipped the page. It was a budget proposal. The numbers were so large they looked like typos. The allocation for R&D alone was more than the entire valuation of Helios AI at its peak. Your first directive, Richter continued, is to integrate your Phoenix platform into our existing infrastructure. Mr. Stone has authorized a full server overhaul. You will have carte blanche. You select the hardware, the team, and the timeline. The system is expected to be fully operational in 6 months. Eleanor leaned back. The warmth of the teacup seeped into her cold hands. The fear that had briefly surfaced was replaced by a familiar, electrical hum. It was the sensation she got when faced with an impossible equation, a complex problem begging to be solved. She wasn't intimidated. She was hungry. The timeline is too long, she said, her voice sharp and clear. Richter paused, raising an eyebrow. I beg your pardon. 6 months is too long. The problem isn't the platform, it's the integration. If I have the budget you've listed here and full administrative access, I can have the core system integrated and running in 90 days. We can be beta testing by the new year. I will need to select a red team from your existing cybersecurity division to try and break it. Richter stared at her for a long moment. The polite professional mask wavered, replaced by a glint of genuine respect. I see, he said. Mr. Stone was right about you. And the team, Eleanor continued, flipping through the staff dossiers. These division heads in Hamburg and Singapore, their logistics expertise is based on old models. They will resist. I need to fly to Hamburg first, then Singapore. I need to be on the ground with my engineers. A video call won't suffice. Mr. Stone anticipated that too, Richter said, a thin smile on his lips. The G650ER is at your disposal, Director. Your travel schedule will be managed by my office, Director. The title landed with a solid, physical weight. This was real. The rest of the 7-hour flight passed in a blur of concentrated work. Kirsten brought them a meal of seared scallops and risotto, which Eleanor ate while dissecting a complex data flow schema. She had, in the space of one transatlantic flight, transitioned from ex-wife to executive. When she finally closed the folder, the sun was setting ahead of them, painting the sky with violent streaks of purple and orange. She had completely forgotten about Marcus. They landed in Geneva shortly after 8 p.m. local time. The descent was as smooth as the ascent. As Eleanor looked out the window, the city lights sparkled around the dark, placid shape of Lake Geneva. There was no terminal. The jet taxied to a private, silent hangar where a black Mercedes Maybach S-Class waited, its engine purring. Mr. Stone is expecting you at the headquarters, Richter said, ushering her from the jet stairs directly into the back of the sedan. The air was cold, crisp, and smelled of pine. The drive was silent. Eleanor watched the pristine, ancient city flash by. In the seatback pocket, a tablet displayed international news. A headline from the Financial Times caught her eye. Helios AI stock in freefall as CEO Sterling faces confidence crisis. She tapped it. The article was brief and brutal. The stock had suspended trading after plunging 68% in a single day. Rumors of a catastrophic system failure, coupled with the loss of a major potential contract, whispered to be with the Astrodynamics conglomerate, had tanked the company's value. Analysts raised long-dormant questions about the company's core IP, which many believed was tied to co-founder Eleanor Hayes, who left the company years ago. CEO Marcus Sterling was unavailable for comment. Eleanor turned the tablet off. It was done. The equation was balanced. There was no joy, only a quiet, logical finality. Lumen, the Astrodynamics headquarters, was a dark glass and steel blade rising from the lake shore. It was a building that radiated power. They were escorted, not to a waiting room, but directly to the penthouse floor. The office was vast, a minimalist expanse of stone and glass overlooking the entire city. Julian Stone rose from behind a massive, empty desk. He was, as she remembered, imposing. He wore a simple black turtleneck and gray slacks, but he dominated the room. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Good flight." "Productive," Eleanor said, shaking his extended hand. His grip was firm. "So, Richter tells me you think you can beat our timeline by 3 months." "I know I can," she replied. "Good," Stone said. He gestured to the desk. A single, thick document and a pen were laid out. "Our lawyers are present, but I find them tedious. I will summarize. This document grants you total control of the Astra Global Dynamics division. Your compensation is as agreed. Your budget is as listed. Your authority is surpassed only by mine. You will succeed or fail entirely on your own merits. I do not tolerate excuses, and I do not reward failure. I do, however, reward results. Do we have an understanding?" This was a world away from Marcus, with his empty charm, his stolen credit, his promises of vision. This was an austere, cold, and exhilarating meritocracy. "A perfect understanding, Mr. Stone," Eleanor said. She picked up the pen. It was heavy, made of cold black metal. She found the signature line. Eleanor Hayes. She signed her name, her handwriting, once small and precise, now looking bold. The ink flowed thick and dark onto the heavy paper. "Excellent," Stone said. He did not smile. He simply nodded. The deal was closed. His intercom buzzed. "Richter, take Director Hayes to her residence. Have our tailor meet her there in the morning, and clear my schedule for 0900. I want to be in her first briefing." "Yes, sir," Richter said. He turned to Eleanor. "This way, Director." As Eleanor followed him, she paused at the doorway, catching her reflection in the dark glass. She saw a woman in a practical, worn beige cardigan, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, face pale from exhaustion. But her eyes were different. They were sharp, focused, and utterly devoid of fear. Stone spoke one last time, without turning around. "Oh, and Director Hayes." "Yes, Mr. Stone. That cardigan. Burn it. You are not a footnote. You are the one writing the book." Eleanor nodded. A small, sharp smile touched her lips for the first time. "Consider it done." She walked out of the office. The heavy doors closed behind her. Not on a new life, but on a life she had finally, completely, reclaimed for herself. The work was just beginning. The story of Eleanor is not just about the jet. It's about the silence, the silent work, the silent pain, and the silent strength that builds when no one is watching. She proved that success is not about the noise you make or the credit you take. It's about the foundation you build. The world and the people in it can try to tell you that you are a footnote. They can laugh at you from their small jets. But the future belongs to those who, like Eleanor, have the courage to build their own wings. Now it's your turn, audience. 1. What did you think of Eleanor's ultimate revenge? Do you believe in this kind of karma, where true talent and hard work finally win? 2. Have you ever felt like Eleanor, underestimated or made to feel invisible? Share your story. 3. What part of Eleanor's transformation inspired you the most? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and resilience, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will make you believe anything is possible.